Hi Tea Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. Today we are checking out NMIXX Lily's Good Luck Babe, and I am proud of myself because I actually know this song, which is probably good because I think I'd have to hand in my 2025 queer membership if I didn't, so it's all good, people. But also shout out to Lily for doing this song, not just because of Chapel Roan as like an artist and all of that, but the range on this song to just do as like a fun little side project, a wild decision to sign up for voluntarily. Shout out to her because I have no doubts that she's going to be able to pull it off, but the amount of practice I would have to put in to sing it, wild. I know that we're very different in terms of the talent and practice that has been put in, but shout out to her. Also just accepting that I am going to have this song stuck in my head for the rest of the day after this, but I'm okay with that. Intense look directly into the camera. Lock in.
It's fine. It's cool. You can say that we're nothing, but you know the truth. And guess I'm the fool. With her arms out like an angel through the car sunroof. I don't want to call it off, but you don't want to call it love. You only want to be the one that I call baby.
Wait, I know I don't want to interrupt. I don't. I think it's great that she's putting that little like yodel effect that is like part of the original as well, because it's part of the character of the song. But I think that it's like part of the melodies too, is that you have these kind of like little flip ups that are happening as the melodies, like these ups and downs, and it's very much like in line with what is being talked about in the song, but doing a great job there. And then that little flip up into that, I'm not even gonna try it. I was like gonna attempt it, and I'm like, nah, look, there's a reason that when I sing this song, because I just have the chorus stuck in my head, the range is lower because I'm like, I don't have that transition between the verses and the chorus. Also, is she singing live for this? I have no idea, because I know there's like a setup to be like it's live, but it almost sounds like we can kind of, I hear the sound kind of resonating in the room, and I don't know if that's actually because she's singing live or if it's just a filter for the mic that she's using or whatever. Let me know, because it's NMIXX. I'm like, they could be singing live. I don't know. They just do that. So let me know.
I don't want to call it off, but you don't want to call it love. You only want to be the one that I call baby. 600 boys in bars, shoot another shot, try to stop the feeling. You can say it's just the way you are. Make a new excuse, not a stupid reason. Good babe, well good babe. You'd have to stop the world just to stop the feeling. Good babe, well good babe. You'd have to stop the world just to stop the
Ooh, okay. It does. I feel like maybe she is singing live just because of breath control and some of the kind of stuff that she's doing to switch it around. Like you could there, the like arrangement of the song is that like you finish the previous line and then the next line overlaps, right? So you're having those two vocal tracks overlapping in the song, and in that one she had to decide, are we going to finish the previous line and start the next line late, or finish the previous line early and then start the next line? So it sounds a little bit like that, because I was just like listening to some of the breath support in it, and usually when you have a recording you edit around all that. Really impressive to be able to hit those notes. Again, the range in the song, crazy. And you also have to pull back with those higher notes, right? Like you can't just like belt immediately with this song. There's about containing that feeling. And obviously I've heard some of Lily being able to hit some of those higher notes and get into a beautiful, gorgeous kind of belting tone where she has a ton of force behind her voice. But pulling back all of that and being able to have the breath support for all of that is a lot to pull off. And there was some great moments where she pushed the note a little bit, which again is that yodel effect. She's not quite doing it all of the time, but it's like being able to have those little like scoop sounds in it to be able to get those melodies as well, and making sure that you have the right breath support for that. So she's doing a great job with that. She's not pushing the note super forward though.
Who cares? It's an actually explicit kind of love affair, and I cry. It's not fair. I just need a little love, and I just need a
Wait. I love that we got a little bit of that character coming through in this one. Again, much lower part of her range. You can put in some of those like vocal fry and little cries that are coming in, as opposed to that yodel effect so much that we had earlier on. But also great where she like pushed the sound, right? Again, noticing a lot of that kind of push and pull that she can have with some of the force behind her voice. I'm still kind of learning the voices within NMIXX, so this is my opportunity to like really focus in on Lily and pull apart a bunch of different things that she's doing. But being able to push that sound so that she has more volume but like strength behind the sound, and then at the beginning of the very next line she's pulling back again, and being able to switch between those really quickly is something you've got to practice so that you're not like being like sharp or flat with the notes, and that you're not getting like a little break in your voice that you don't actually want there. Being able to do that in a way that is very like smooth and intentional. Very well done. Right there, she uses a little bit of that breath out to help her. Ooh, I also think it's interesting seeing, I'm assuming just from listening to it, that it's a live vocal track that we're getting. I don't actually know that though. I've talked about it in like other videos. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a great ear for that. I'm mostly just pulling for the fact that I can hear some of the breath support in it, and usually you're editing around that when you were recording in a studio, right? Because you can record like half a line and then edit it together to get the best takes or whatever. So having some of the breath, like how she's choosing to put her breath in, is usually how I can tell if someone is doing something live. And it's a lot easier when you have one person singing. When it's a group, it's a little bit harder for me to pick that out, because sometimes someone like sings like one line and then they're done. It's someone else's voice coming in. So you can live edit around when you need to manage that breath support, because you can just switch between who's singing stuff. So that is a little bit trickier for me, but with one person's voice, it's a little bit easier for me to keep up with it. But I think it's interesting how she's choosing to have those breaths, because we have that build up right before we go into the chorus. And then you can hear her do, she hits the U at the beginning of the chorus, and then she takes a breath, and then we have her like pick up again with the kiss. So we don't really get the like can in between there. She like fudges it so that she can have that breath. And I think that's a really interesting placement for that. You need to. And I think pointing that out is like a mistake technically, which is not actually how I see it. It's just like the logistics of singing this song, right? It's one thing to have a song work on paper or be able to pick out the best takes in a recorded thing. It's another thing to actually be able to sing it. And I don't actually know how Chappell Roan does it. I don't know if I've ever heard her sing it live. Anyway, but you have to get all of your breath to have that whole workup into the pre-chorus, right? And then you hit that high note. So it's that whole build up in the range to be able to hit that. And then you need to take another breath to do the next line, right? That's just, every person needs to breathe. I think it's interesting how she's choosing where that breath is going. And there's a few other points where I'm like, oh, it's interesting that she's choosing a breath there or a breath here, because she knows that she's going to need to be able to manage that better to get the strength she wants for the next kind of section, right? So being able to pick where you're breathing so that you know how to emphasize the right parts of the phrase, right? So even in that, like, you can kiss, right? That little section, obviously the most important parts of that line are the you, where we're getting that higher note, and then hitting kiss as part of telling the story of the song. So the can in between there, if you're gonna fudge one of the words and kind of pronounce it but not really, so you can take that breath, that would be the one that you want, right? Because a lot of people's brains they're gonna autofill that in while they're listening to the song. So I think it's really expertly placed in how she's gonna manage that, and I think that's interesting. Did I go back? I don't remember. Really good breath support though. I mean, we're gonna go back. I was like, how are we gonna hit that note? Beautifully down that little run in there. Gorgeous, beautiful closure, especially in comparison to having a breathier tone before that, right? Kind of gentling out the sound to have that contrast with that belted note. Beautiful, gorgeous mixed tone there. But I was also, again, going into some of the breath stuff that she's doing. I think it's really interesting. We had the little vocalization, and then she launches right into the next line of the first line of that bridge. And I was like, ooh, that's a decision. I would have taken a breath. I would have finished that vocalization, breath, then started singing that line. And she's like, slide right into it, which again is like a decision of like, how are we choosing that breath? But beautifully done with some of those richer parts of her lower tone. And again, having that closure in comparison to some of those like breathier tones. Really beautifully placed.
All of those years ago, you're standing face to face with, I told you so. Oh, I hate to say, I told you
A little cry in her voice too.
so. I hate to say it, but I told you so.
It's not a lot of tension either.
I told you so. Oh, good luck, good luck. You'd have to stop the world just to stop the feel. Oh, good luck, good luck. You'd have to stop the world just to stop the feeling. Have to stop the world just to stop the feeling. To stop the world just to stop the feeling. You have to stop the world just to stop.
I mean, can we just go back to hear that shift in tone from that like light sound of that higher part of her range and then just immediately down into that lower part for that softer vocal? Beautifully done.
Have to stop the world just to stop the feeling. To stop the world just to stop the feeling. You have to stop the world just to stop.
Really beautiful way of like pulling back the song at the end. And she was just like, let me just do that song. Like, just let me just perform that. Like, again, crazy range on this song. So much breath support needed in it. Like, it's not an easy song to tackle in any way. Hearing some of how she went about it, right? Being able to get those higher, like, it's not just the range, right? Again, it's pulling back on that higher part of your range. It has to be a delicate sound for that, like, chorus. And that's so difficult to do in general, just because that means it has to be in your range, right? I've said it in other videos, but if you have to shout to hit a higher note, it's not in your range. You have to put more work into it. You shouldn't have to put a bunch of volume behind your voice to be able to hit a note. That means you're reaching for it. So if you're pulling back to have those softer tones, it has to be something that's more comfortable in your voice. And I think it's a huge testament to like what she can do with her voice, that was something that she could pull off. And again, there's so many dynamics in terms of having a lighter sound, softer sounds, some of those belting notes, having a rich lower part of the range in those verses, and like getting to the end of the song, and then also be able to put in some of those like yodels and vocal fry and little character things into her voice, because you have to sound almost like angry at certain parts and then have those really light, delicate notes later on. So having all of that kind of wrapped up in this one song, which again, she's just doing as like a side quest. She was just like, yeah, I'm going to cover that song. I would not sign myself up for that. No, absolutely not. Beautifully done. Gorgeous placement of some of those belting notes near the end as well. And if it is a live track, which I feel like it is, also impressive to not just be like, I'm gonna do this song that is already difficult to pull off, I'm gonna do it live just cause, I guess. Honestly, like, sometimes listening to NMIXX, I'm like, did I ever know how to sing? I don't know. Really beautiful work from her, which I expected, obviously, like from this group in general, but also from like the parts that I've heard of Lily singing. I'm like, clearly she's got the vocals to go with it. But one of my favorite things about being able to check out covers and like solo things, right, where I get to listen to just one person's voice at a time, is that not only it helps me get an ear for their tone, and I feel like Lily is one of the voices that is a little bit easier for me to pick out when I'm listening to NMIXX altogether, but just being able to see how they go about singing, it's easier for me to figure out kind of the techniques that they lean into. And I think that looking into how she chooses like enunciation and breath support and some of the character decisions that she's making, even in this, like obviously where a lot of the character is coming in is in those verses because it's in a lower part of her range and you can play around with that a little bit more, whereas when you're trying to hit those like higher delicate notes, you just have to lock in. You just have to focus in on like, how do I hit those? And you're not really supposed to be playing around a lot with them in terms of the original either, is also very much outside of some of that character because it's supposed to just float and be its own kind of character thing to have these really like delicate higher notes, as opposed to some of that like anger, almost like resentment that kind of leaks through in some of the verses and like bridge and stuff. So I think it's really interesting to see how she took some of the things from the original and then also some of the little moments in this where she was putting in her own little flair of what it was. And I think it's interesting that we had some of those kind of yodel effects that were going on like the first chorus, and then she leaned away from it the further we got along in the song. And I think that is, I think it's almost like an homage to the original, something that's like familiar, and then we transition into something that's a little bit more making it into something that is for her voice and her performance, her take on it. But really well done from her, and like the placement of the sounds and everything, definitely something that I could not have just pulled out of my back pocket. So props to her for picking this as a song of all things. But I hope you enjoyed listening to that along with me. You can click this playlist to go to my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so next time I post an NMIXX reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.